Hi everyone, and welcome to the webinar for Select Event Venues and Sites. My name is Nikita, and you should recognize me from some of the Diploma of Business webinars that we've also done together. So today we're going to be going through the entire unit. So I've broken down assessments 1 and 2 in the unit breakdown as well. So we're going to go through the templates that you're needing to complete, the reports that you're needing to write, and some of the terms that you might not really be familiar with. So we're just going to touch on those as well so that you have a better understanding of going into the assessment. The session is going to run through the webinar, which is really a handy little resource. You can pause it at any time. You can fast forward to a section that you find most relevant, or replay a section as well. So I think it's a really handy little tool. I'm going to have the unit breakdown up on the screen in a moment, where we'll run through the assessments and some of the tips I've put together for you as well. And I'll explain some of the terms and what we're really looking for in these reports that you're writing as part of this assessment. How are you going to get the most out of the webinar? I really suggest either having it printed out, like the actual assessment printed out from the LMS, being on the LMS while you're watching or listening to this, or having, a printout or your student workbook or something where you can take some notes. Notes I find is really always helpful because you can just go back and have a read of them. Otherwise, you can go back and watch the webinar as well. But that's what I feel you'll get the most out of. So, a couple of different ways. So you can go through your learning content as well before you watch the webinar, if that's going to help at all. And otherwise, just take a whole bunch of notes. What happens after the webinar? Well, hopefully you submit. So after the webinar, if you do have any other questions, feel free to get in contact with me or your own mentor. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm happy to look through drafts if that's something that you're wanting to do. But yeah, so after the webinar, grab your notes, type up your assessment, and submit that bad boy. So let's get started. So with the unit, the actual assessment is going to be based, they're going to run off of each other. So the whole purpose of this unit is that you're going to be creating your own music festival. Now there are some conditions to that music festival. It is for under 18s, so there's no alcohol or any kind of illegal or illicit materials that are allowed at this. So that's something you're going to need to take into consideration throughout the entire unit. So it's going to be something that should be mentioned in your reports, in any of your templates, in anything that you need to, any organization that you need to have in order to make sure that that's running that way. But basically you work for X Factor Events and you're in charge of a music festival. So assessment 1, so let's just pull up the webinar here for us. Okay. So assessment 1 is giving you the scenario of you're creating a music festival for under 18s. It's for New Year's Eve, so it's like a little something, quite a niche event where they'll be able to purchase tickets and come along and celebrate New Year's Eve in style. So one of the first things that you're asked here to do is to prepare an events brief. Now I'll just pull this up a little bit here. So the events brief it's a very short, detailed little template here. We're not wanting massive sentences. Dot points is completely fine in this. You just really want to list off what the plan is here for it. So you've got your event name, so you can name it anything that you want. It can be like New Year's Bash or whatever you like. The date, so typically it should be 31st. So that way you'll be able to put in that it is a New Year's event. What's the type of the event? Is it a new event? So has it been done before? Yes or no? With the start time and the event duration, you want to be able to have this as a realistic type of deal for under 18. So maybe it's not something that you would have that runs until 3 o'clock in the morning due to transport or anything else that you need to take into consideration for these. So make sure that's a realistic time frame for under 18s. One of the things that students do get a lot of questions about is the bump in times. So if it says proposed bump in time and proposed bump out, bump in and bump out is a term that's used within the events industry, especially for setting up everything. So bumping in something means that you're bringing in your equipment essentially. So the proposed bump in date, therefore, would be probably the day beforehand of the actual event. And that just gives the guys enough time to set up the stages, make sure the sound equipment's working, do a couple of rehearsals, whatever they need to do, sound check, etc. And then your proposed bump out time is when everything leaves the venue itself. So generally with events such as these, you probably have the venue booked for a good solid 3 days. So you have the first day, which is the bump in, which is where all your equipment comes in, everything is getting set up and tested. Then the second day you have your actual event. And then the third day is when everything is packed down and taken out of the actual venue. So that's your bump in, bump out. This is where you're going to be able to do a little bit of research on what your location is going to be. So you can choose any venue or site, so like parklands or a field or anything like that, where you can find enough information to be able to help you along with this assessment. A lot of these are either going to be, council owned or government owned or something like that. So for Brisbane, for instance, you might be looking at River Stage or the RNA Showgrounds for your music festival. So you want to be able to have enough information here to be able to fill out your event brief and then make some assumptions later on as well for your reports. So the venue name, you just need to tell me what the name of the venue is, what the contact details are. And with this contact details as well, you don't actually need to go and contact any of the event vendors or anything like that, or the owners, or anything at all. You don't need to contact anybody externally. With the contact details, just use what's publicly available. So if it's a .info address or something like that, or just a location, just pop in whatever that you can find in there. We're not going to actually contact anybody, but it's just nice to put in there as a realistic document. With your event purpose statement, you just need to tell me what is the purpose for having this event. Why is the event required? And what's the reason behind it? So it could be something as simple as a statement of having, a safe under 18s New Year's Eve party. With the event objectives, what are your goals for the event? Do you want it to be safe? Do you want it to be successful? And how will you know that those things are happening? So you can have, I would probably recommend to have up to 3 event objectives, just because we want to have a couple of measurable goals in there for your event so that you can see that it was successful. So just have a think about those and just pop them into there. With your draw card, it's the main reason that people want to go. So if you think of any kind of music festival or anything like that, aside from the actual coolness of being at one, what's the draw card been for you? Has it been a particular artist that's been playing there? Is it a particular set that you're really looking forward to? Anything like that? Is it a location even, or a date? So that's what you want to have a think about here as well. And because this is your own event, you can come up with anything. If you want to have Imagine Dragons coming up and headlining your music festival, totally fine. I don't mind. So as long as it's something that you think would be a major draw card, even just for yourself, make sure that you're putting that in there as well. So what's the main attraction and what's the reason to attend? With the stakeholders, we do talk about stakeholders quite a lot within your diploma. So it's just going to be you listing anybody who's going to benefit or be affected in any way by the event. So you want to definitely include your attendees or your under 18s who are coming along to that, because they've definitely got an interest in this event and they're going to be affected hopefully in a positive way by it, and being able to look forward to the next year's one as well. So anybody who has any kind of stake in this is a stakeholder. You can also think of things like local businesses who might be looking to have volunteers, or local employment and everything happening with this as well. Some people might want to be able to put together food trucks or something, and they might want to come through. So they might be a stakeholder. It can literally be anything. The human resources required, I just want you to list the staff roles of people who will be helping you with this event and running it as well. So you'll be the event manager, so you can pop that in there as well, an event manager. You might have security, you might have ticket holders or anything like that. It can be anything at all of what staff might be doing at this event. Now, you want to take into consideration that the event is holding up to 3,000 people. So you definitely want to make sure that you've got enough staff roles there to accommodate for that. With the physical resources required, what are the physical things that you need to be able to make sure that this music festival happens? So you want to think of things like staging, seating, any kind of backup generators that might be needed depending on your location. Do you need decorations because it's a New Year's Eve party? What is it that you actually need to make this party a success? Now, your expected attendance, we've said in this scenario that could be up to 3,000 people that are attending this. But as an event coordinator, you want to kind of be realistic. So you want to have your maximum amount, which will be 3,000. And then what is your realistic expectation of that event? So how many people are you expecting it to attend? With the venue location and requirements, it's just what you're really needing to have at the venue that you've chosen that's meeting your requirements, really. So you want to think of things like public transport, because the under 18s, they're probably not going to be driving themselves. If they are, like if it's a 17-year-old that has a license, is there parking available for them? Is there any type of area for pick up and drop off for younger children who have got their parents coming along with them, or dropping them off? Is there emergency access, water and electricity access? What is it that you need at the venue to be able to help you have this event? With the budget, I don't expect a big detailed budget here. It's not required. So what you're really needing to tell me here is what your actual budget is for the entire event. My tip for this one is to have a look at how many people are coming. So we've maxed out at 3,000, and then look at what you think would be a reasonable amount to charge for a ticket for an under 18. So once you've got that ticket, say it's $25, multiply that by 3,000, and that will give you the amount of money that you're expected to come in as revenue, as a complete like foundation base. Like if you weren't going to sell any merchandise or any food or drink that you were profiting from, the tickets is all that you're selling. That's exactly how much money will come. So then what would be a realistic, I guess, expense account and like budget to be able to still make a profit? So ballpark figure, if you're looking at about $50,000 to $70,000, I think that's realistic. If you're looking to 3.3 million, probably not so much. Perfect. So once you've done the event brief, which is this big blue template, you're going to go down and you're going to create a specification checklist. It sounds really scary. It's just like, oh God, what is this? But what you're doing here is just listing off things that you're going to need at this venue and just in general, and does that meet the requirements? So if it's something that you should be able to create, and then on that, at the time when you're booking the venue or setting it up, you should just be able to go through and just tick off everything that you've got. So you want to have a look at the attendee profile. So make sure that you're considering your audience. So they're under 18. So what things do they need? What things should be excluded? So definitely alcohol or any kind of illicit things. You might also want to look at security and everything to make sure that nobody's jumping fences to get through into the festival, that nobody's bringing in any alcohol or any glass or anything like that. And just really come through and just tick it off. So have a think of what each section of these dot points, what really needs to happen for your venue and for your event to make sure that it's safe and that it's a success for your under 18s. The approximate number of attendees, so again, 3,000. So you're going to be looking at whether you've got enough seating for them. Is the area big enough for it? Is there enough bathrooms or, food or drink or anything like that to be able to accommodate for them? Budget cost estimate, what's your budget? Where is it all going? So you could use a checklist here of, you've got a $70,000 budget and that you're using some of it for marketing, some of it for the actual venue hiring. Maybe you're paying bands. Local bands might be doing it for free just to get some exposure. So that's all things that you want to take into account. So just work your way through each dot point and just think of what you're really needing to have for your event and what you can check off. Perfect. So once you've done that, you're going to research a possible venue, which you may have already done based on your event brief of what you thought was a suitable venue for your brief. So with this one, you're going to tell me a little bit more about the event venue and why you've chosen this. So you're going to tell me a little bit more in your analysis here of why it's suitable. So tell me, what does it have that other venues don't have? Is it close to anything? Think of the location that it's got. And you just want to have a look at the layout of it as well. So as a site analysis, so where are the stages going to go? What's the seating going to look like? Is there a lot of entrances? Is there parking? How do people get there? Is it easy to get there? All of that kind of stuff, because keeping in mind that these guys are under 18. So if they're not driving, they're going to need public transport, or parents are going to need to be able to get there to drop them off and pick them up. So it needs to be as easy as possible. So you just want to tell me the facts about your event here. About the venue, sorry, not the event. Once you've done that, you're going to move into a report, which can be sent out as an email or a letter, which will be to your manager, Elsa Wu. So you're going to, I guess, I'll probably recommend to write this into the persuasion of, a positive persuasion. So getting her to say yes to your venue. So you want to make sure that you're going through all of these really great facts about your venue, and as well as like going through the payment policy and the cancellation policies. So the locality, again, where is it based? Is it easy to get to? Is there a lot of parking available or public transport or pick-up drop-off areas? Is it situated, does it have enough room for everything? Does it have enough room for seating and stages? Are you doing multiple stages? How is that going to look? With the booking policy or procedures, if you can't find this information online, make it up. So as simple as that is, make some realistic assumptions and just put that in there. You don't need to contact the actual venue themselves to get this information. So just realistic assumptions. Same thing with the payment policy and the cancellation policy. You can do some research online if you can't find it for your actual venue, just to see what the general consensus is on these type of things, or just get an idea of what's happening. Otherwise, again, use realistic assumptions and just pop that into your email. If you know of any previous events held at the venues or sites, like Riverstage, for instance, had Ed Sheeran, that's pretty cool. So you're going to want to tell your manager about that because Ed Sheeran played at Riverstage. So that's what you're going to want to do in this as well. So tell your manager about any previous events or artists that played at that particular event as well, at that venue. Tell them a little bit about the attendance if that's possible, or if you know anything else about if you went to this, maybe the atmosphere. Because all of this is going to play into whether or not somebody's going to choose to have a festival at this place. With your 2 client testimonials, again, if you can't find these online on Yelp or anything like that, feel free to just use some examples of, if you've been there yourself, use your own experiences. Otherwise, you can just use your knowledge that you do have from your research and everything else to obtain some kind of idea of what somebody might experience when they play there or see an event there. For the venue or site overview, you want to look at things like potential advantages and disadvantages of playing at this particular site. So you want to be fair with your your email to your manager as well. So tell them that basically this is showing that you've looked at all angles. So you've looked at everything that might have gone right and wrong. So what are the advantages of playing at Riverstage? What are the disadvantages of it? It could be quite an open area. What happens if it rains? Those kind of things. So think of things like, weather, if it's in a location that might not be that easy, but it's perfect in every other way. That's the things you want to think about. And then you want to make a recommendation for and against its use. So if you were going to say, yes, we definitely want to do this, why are you saying that we wanted to use this venue? And if there was a disadvantage, why would you recommend against using it? Maybe you've got a different one in plan. So you're going to refer back to your client brief, so your event brief that we first looked at, and your event specification checklist as well, to make sure that your venue that you've chosen checks off all of those. Now, it does say approximately 300 words, but I'm okay if you do a little bit more than that, if you feel that 300 words isn't enough to go through with it, as well as 10% less. But I would like you to have a good look at your venue and a good analysis, and really put yourself in the shoes of, if you're going to use this and be an event organizer, why would you use it? Why wouldn't you use it? And look at all aspects of it. I really love reading these from you guys, because everybody's from a different city. They've always chosen a different site or venue. Some of them are quite new that I haven't heard of before. So it's really exciting for me to read it. So please put in the extra effort and please put in the research for it. I really do appreciate it. With question 3, it's a booking letter to the venue. Again, you do not need to contact the venue or anybody from it. You're not going to look at anybody really externally. So what we're going to do here, you can type it out as an email, because it's a very common form of communication, or it can be a letter. So you're going to address it to just the venue manager is fine. You don't need to have a name unless you want to make one up. James Bond is pretty popular, so you never know, he might be running a venue at this point. And you just want to tell them a little bit about what your event is going to be. So your Under 18s Music Festival, why you're choosing their venue to have your event at, and why you think it's going to be a really great fit. You also want to go through and ask them about your second dot point here, any requesting payment details that they need to have. So do you need to put down a deposit? You're just trying to really find out that information in this letter and have that open form of communication. So what I'm really looking for here is just having that professional communication, asking the right questions, and being able to open that wave of communication, really. So you're going to look at, payment details. So is there a deposit? Is there a cancellation policy that you need to be aware of? And when it talks about the contract and management document exchange, it's really asking you if you need to know about anything with their food licenses, or any security. Is there any contractual health and safety documentation that you need to be aware of for that site or venue? And that's really what we're opening up in this discussion here with this letter. Okay. And that is the end of assessment 1. So what you're doing here again, just to cap this one off, is that you're going to be doing your events brief. So you're going to fill in each one of these boxes, and it doesn't have to be big paragraphs or anything like that. Just dot points is completely fine. We want to have your bump in and bump out time. So again, that's when you bring in your equipment and you're setting everything up. So that's the bump in. Bump out is when you're tearing everything down and packing everything away and moving on out. Generally, it's about a 3-day process. So you bump in, you have your event, you bump out. With the objectives, you want to have at least 3 objectives. And your draw card is the main attraction or reason that somebody's coming. So again, if you want to have Imagine Dragons playing, that's what you want to write here, is Imagine Dragons is the headlining act. So you just want to knock off all of these ones and then move on to your checklist as well. So what you're doing here is you're going to go through these ones again and put them into, really think about these and come up with a couple of points I would recommend for each one of these. So be able to check that off as per against like your venue or your site that you've decided on, just to make sure that it's a correct fit. You're going to research the venue and then tell me a bit more about the actual facts about it. What does it look like? What's your event going to look like? What's the staging going to be? Is there enough seating? What's the layout? And any facilities that are available. So this is just a very analytical piece. With the event status report, it's just an email to your manager, Elsa Wu, and you're going to tell her everything about this event and where you're up to so far. And you want to cover off on your locality. So where is it? Does it have enough facilities that's going to be proper for your audience? What's the booking policies or procedures, a payment policy, and a cancellation policy that she may need to be aware of? With those 3 in particular, realistic assumptions are probably the best way to go for this one if you can't find the information online, if it's not readily available. Previous events held at the venue or site, you really want to make sure that you're making the right choice here. So putting in some big names or any well-known events that have been held at this site is always going to help. So make sure you're putting that in. And your 2 client testimonials, if you can find them online, amazing, great, use them. Otherwise, use your own experiences and your own assumptions of what it might be like to be at that event. And pop that in there. Your venue or site overview, we're going to list the potential advantages and disadvantages of using this. Again, make sure that you're thinking of risks like bad weather. If it's a really open area, is it too small? Is it too big? What's going to happen here? And then lucky last, we're going to be doing a booking letter to the venue. Again, you do not need to contact anybody from the venue or site. You're going to tell them a little bit about the dates that you're wanting to have your actual event at, what your event is and why you're choosing them, why you think it's a good fit. And then you're going to start proposing some things of requesting documentation, so like health and safety, any food licensing, anything that you would need to know about this venue, and sign that off professionally, and that's it. Perfect. Okay. And that brings us straight into assessment 2. So as I said earlier at the beginning of the webinar, if you want to pause, you can pause and then go through and take some notes again. Otherwise, you can skip ahead to where I'm at. So goes pretty well. With assessment 2, we can just assume that you've been given the all good from Elsa, who's your manager. So now you're going to go through and develop a risk register, which may be something you have done before. It might be brand new to you. So we're just going to go through each one of the steps in this one just to help you, I guess, get this one all sorted. With a risk register, it's incredibly important to always have this done before an event, especially for a new venue or site that you haven't gone through yet, which is why in the first assessment, we're asking for any documentation for health and safety, because we need to start putting that into our risk register as well. So for our risk register, it's going to look like this. Mine's a little bit more squished than what yours will be. With the event step here, you want to put in at the step of the event. So is it the organization stage? Is it the planning stage where this might happen? Is it the actual day of the event? Is it the pack down? What step of the event could this hazard or risk happen? I would like to see about 6, if you can, of this one. So maybe 5 or 6 risk is what I'm really expecting from these ones. So you want to have your steps here. Your hazards, what's the actual hazard? Is it, it can be anything at all, like loose carpeting on stairs. It can be electrical wires that might be exposed, any cords that are out and loose and, people can trip on them. Bad weather is a risk as well. That might be something. So what's your hazard here? And then what's your risk that can come from that? So if we go back to our cord, maybe we're tripping over a cord that might be there for a lighting equipment or something. The hazard then would be the loose cords. The risk would be tripping or falling or injuring themselves. And then your priority rating here goes from low to extreme. So you want to be quite realistic about this as well. So if somebody tripped and fell, is it going to be low, moderate, high, extreme? It could really be one or the other, just because you don't know what the situation is, if they're falling into something or over something. They could electrocute themselves, anything at all. So this is everything you want to have a look at here. You only need to tick one of these boxes to show me what risk that priority is. The control measure is going to be anything that you can have in place or that is already in place to control that. So whether it's tape over the cords to make sure that they stuck down, a hazard sign or the hazard tape or anything like that to make sure people are drawing their eye to it, anything at all, what's your control measure for it? And what's the planning activity and tool required? So what things do you need to have in order to make sure that it's planned out properly, and how can you make sure that it's taken care of? So do you need to have any incident reports filled out? Does it need to be an injury register or anything like that? And you also want to take into account any health and safety legislation or act that might be able to be in with this one. So like Health and Safety Act 2000, I believe, might be something in here that you want to pop in. So when it's asking for that legislation, you don't need to tell me everything about it. I just need you to list it in there as per saying that this is in line with that. So you can also have a look here with a hazard or a risk, any privacy laws as well. So if somebody was to do credit card fraud or steal a ticket or something, how would you fix that? Or how would you plan for that really? From this, you're also going to develop a venue site liaison project schedule, which is a very fancy term for telling me it's basically a to-do list. So what we're asking for here is a Gantt chart, which is something that not a lot of people have heard of before. I definitely suggest looking at examples online just so you can understand what it looks like. But basically what it is here is probably Excel might be the best way to look at it because you can fill in the little squares. So on the left-hand side, you want to have all of the tasks that you're going to be doing, such as, booking the venue, setting up the equipment, hiring caterers if that's what you're doing, putting in artists and everything else and making sure they're ready to go. So that's going to be your task list on the left-hand side. Along the top, you're going to have timeframes. So I would probably suggest doing this in weekly or fortnightly increments. So you can be saying, fortnight beginning the 18th of April and start that way. And then have those increments along the top. So what I've done here is I've created an example for you. And in your unit breakdown, I've told you where each part is. So as you can see on the task list, you've got all your tasks that need to be done. So it's every single task that needs to be done from beginning to end is down the side here. And then we've got our time frames up here. So I've split them into weeks, but then it's months as well. So depending on how long you've got to organize all of this is how you're going to do it. And then you're going to look at each little time frame and each task and color in the square of how long it's going to take. So I can see at a snapshot that this very first task in your example takes a week. So it's a very visual snapshot of what's happening with that task. It can be with the Excel as well, because you can color in each little square. You might be better off being able to do the weekly ones, and that way one square is a week. If you do less than that, it's going to be 3 days or 4 days or something like that, and you can figure that out. So make squares smaller if you like, or however you want to do it. But yeah, this is the best way to go forward with it, and it can be as simple as you like. It does not need to be as fancy as some of the formal Gantt charts that are out there. So it's very much just a visual snapshot of telling me how long each task will take. Once you've done that, you're going to create a contract through the template that I've created for you. So you're going to just fill in the blanks here. So you just want to tell me all the venue address and everything else. If you have a venue representative, just make up a name if you don't actually know. That's totally fine. What's the position? What's the address of the venue? Phone, email, all that good stuff. And you want to make sure that this is almost as formal as possible, because this is basically a formal document. And then you're going to be, just flick that around. Okay, so we've got all the venue information up here, and then the hirer, which is you. So the event title, what's your event title? Your company name, so X Factor Events. You're going to be the representative because you're the liaison for this. What's the address of your building, your phone, and your email? Again, you can make all of this up, totally fine. So you could be at 123 Dream Street for all I know, and that's all fine. So if you've got the booking details, the name of the performance space booked. So is there a specific space within your venue that you've hired? So is there one stage that you've got? Is it a whole section? What's your seating style? So is it cabaret, theatre? Is everybody standing? Your agreed capacity, so the number of tickets that can be sold. So for you, that would be 3,000. And then you've just got here is your date of the event name, the bump in date. So that's the date that you go in with all of your equipment. What time and date do the doors open? When does the event commence? When does it conclude? And what's the bump out period? So what's the day that you bump everything out? The financial agreement is the hire fee. So again, that's any monetary value that you want to use. You can make this one up. Any other fees and charges? Is there any other fees or charges? Is there a booking fee? Are you using staff members from this venue? How much does that cost? Are they giving you security? Are they giving you time for rehearsal? Does that all cost extra? Box office management, so tickets. Who manages the tickets? Do you have to pay externally for that? All that good stuff. Then we've got the event requirements. So who's responsible for the following? So we've got everything already in here. So the lighting equipment, what are the details of that? What do you need? Do you need spotlights? Do you need little lights? What do you need for the lighting equipment? Is that your responsibility or is it the venue's responsibility? So basically here, I want you to put in the details for each box here in the details column. And then just tell me whether it's the company's responsibility or the venue's responsibility to have that ready to go. With the terms and conditions, you're going to basically just tell me a little bit about here, how the party agrees to the following terms and conditions. So payment details is you're going to fill in this here of what your payment details are. So are you putting down a deposit? Is there a cancellation policy that you're agreeing to? Is there a specific date that everything must be paid by? Or are you doing it in increments? So again, completely up to you how you want to do it. Just tell me what's happening. With the cancellation policy, you just need to tell me what the cancellation fee is and what the policy is if it's cancelled by the company. So if it's cancelled by the company within 3 weeks, what's the cancellation fee? If there is one, what's the deal there? If the booking is cancelled by the venue, what happens then? Do they pay you a cancellation fee? Do they give you some reimbursement for everything that you've done? Do they give you back your deposit? What does this look like? And then we're just going to do our fancy little signatures down here. So you've got your venue's rights and obligations, which we've filled in for you. And then you're going to sign on behalf of you, print your name and your date, your signature of your witness, print their name and their date, and then the same thing for the venue as well. So it'll be their venue manager, print their name and date. Again, James Bond will do fine. Signature of witness, you could do Miss Moneypenny, totally fine as well. And that is the end of the unit. So for the second assessment, we're just going to go back up here and review this. So you've been told that your venue is all okay and you get to use this one now. So we're going to develop a risk register. So the event step again is the step of the event. So planning or organization stage. What are your hazards? What are the risks that come from that hazard? What's your priority rating for that risk? How can you control it? What's in place? What do you need to put in place to be able to control it or fix it? And what legislation or act relates directly to that. Then you're going to make a Gantt chart, which is going to look something like this. It doesn't have to be as fancy as this, if you want to call it fancy. It can be an Excel document. Basically, you're going to have your task list, a time frame up the top, so it can be weekly, monthly, fortnightly increments, whatever you like. And then you just want to color in the squares to tell me how much time is being allocated for each task. Then you're going to do the contract, which is basically filling in the blanks of each one of these, of the template that we've done, and make sure that you've got your names and your dates printed on here as well. Oh, we should, assessment 2. We've done the recap because we're so efficient. So where to from here? So from here, you're going to take your notes and any questions that you do have, and feel free to contact me if you do have them, and get started on your assessment. So I'm really hoping to see you guys really push these forward and get those big green ticks on it, which would be amazing. So any questions or concerns, feel free to get in touch with me or your own mentor as well. I'm happy to answer questions through email or text or phone. My number is up here, and so is my email address. I'm also more than happy to look at any drafts that you may have of your assessments. So if you're wanting me to have a look at your checklist or any of your emails or anything like that for this, feel free to send them through, and I'll be able to give you some feedback on that. So support available to you is obviously me as well, as your own mentors. We do coaching calls. You can rewatch this webinar. If you haven't got the unit breakdown, I can send the unit breakdown to you. But yeah, so you've got lots of resources available to you as well. I definitely recommend having a look at Google for some examples of the Gantt chart if you're really not sure what it's supposed to look like. So what's next? You go away and you submit your assessment and fill that one out. And again, please email me if you do have any drafts or questions or anything like that. Feel free to call me as well. I'm more than happy to help. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.